I stood in the corner of the Plaza Hotel ballroom, watching my own wedding reception unfold like a theater production I hadn't auditioned for. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across 500 guests I'd never met. Women in designer gowns whispered behind manicured hands. Men in custom suits conducted business deals between toasts. And there, at the center of it all, stood my husband of 3 hours, Dante Moretti. He looked every bit the part. 6'3" of controlled power wrapped in a midnight blue Tom Ford tuxedo that probably cost more than my entire year's salary as a paralegal. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on Italian Renaissance sculptures. Sharp jawline, sharper cheekbones, and eyes the color of espresso that never seemed to blink when they fixed on you. Those eyes had barely glanced at me since we'd said our vows. Mrs. Moretti. His mother appeared beside me, all elegant disapproval in Valentino couture. You're standing alone. People will talk. They already were. I'd heard the murmurs. The law firm secretary who somehow married into the Moretti family. The nobody who trapped the prince. The gold digger. If only they knew the truth. That gold had nothing to do with it, and I'd been the one trapped. I was just getting some air, I said, forcing a smile that felt like broken glass. Then get it with your husband. She air-kissed near my cheek, leaving a cloud of Chanel No. 5. Appearances matter in this family, Cara. Remember that. I watched her glide away, and something cold settled in my chest. This wasn't a wedding. It was a merger. I was the asset being acquired, the signature on a contract drawn up in my father's blood. 3 weeks ago, I'd been Aria Castellano, 26, unremarkable, invisible. My father owned a small construction company in Queens. We weren't rich, but we were happy, or so I'd thought. Turns out, happiness doesn't pay off gambling debts to the Moretti crime family. Turns out, when you owe $3 million to people who view human life as a negotiable commodity, they get creative about collection methods. The memory still burned. My father's bruised face, his trembling hands as he'd explained the deal. Dante Moretti needed a wife. Something about optics, legitimacy, appeasing the old guard who wanted their boss settled down. And my father needed his debt forgiven. The solution presented itself with cold mathematical precision. Marry him, my father had begged. Just for a year. It's a contract, nothing more. He promised. No intimacy, no expectations. You live in the house, you attend events, you smile for cameras. Then after a year, clean divorce, and we're free. Free. The word tasted like a lie even then. I'd said yes because what choice did I have? Watch my father disappear into the Hudson River? Watch our family business burn? Watch my mother's heart break as they destroyed everything we'd built? So here I stood, Mrs. Dante Moretti, in a Vera Wang gown I hadn't chosen, surrounded by people who looked at me like something stuck to their shoe, married to a man who'd outlined our arrangement with all the warmth of a corporate merger. 1 year, he'd said during our single pre-wedding meeting, his voice carrying that distinctive slight Italian accent that seemed to deepen when he was being particularly cold. You will live in my home. You will attend functions as required. You will be civil, discreet, and compliant with public appearances. In exchange, your father's debt is cleared, and upon annulment, you receive $200,000. What about... I'd started. What about what? Those dark eyes had pinned me in place. Living arrangements. Sleeping arrangements. You'll have your own wing of the house. I have no interest in forcing myself on unwilling women, Miss Castellano. This is business. Keep it that way. The relief had been immediate and shameful, but as I'd watched him stand to leave, tall and imposing and utterly unreachable, something else had flickered through me, something I'd refused to name. Now, across the ballroom, I watched him lean down to hear something his consigliere whispered, watched the way power seemed to emanate from him like heat, the way other men deferred, moved aside, lowered their eyes. Dante Moretti wasn't just wealthy. He was dangerous. The kind of dangerous that wore Brioni suits and signed death warrants with fountain pens. And I'd just legally bound myself to him. "Dance with me." His voice came from directly behind me. I hadn't heard him approach. No one ever seemed to hear Dante approach. It was like he moved through space differently than normal people. Some predator's grace that defied physics. I turned, and there he was, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something dark and expensive. Cedar and leather and smoke. "People are watching," he said, and it wasn't a request. His hand settled on my lower back as he guided me to the dance floor. Every head turned. The string quartet shifted to something slow, romantic, a mockery of what this was. His other hand captured mine, engulfing it, and then we were moving. He was a good dancer. Of course he was. Men like Dante Moretti mastered everything they touched. "You're trembling," he observed, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "I'm cold. You're afraid." I met his eyes then, forced myself to hold that dark gaze. "Wouldn't you be?" Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, that I'd spoken honestly. His hand at my back pressed slightly firmer, drawing me incrementally closer. "I made you a promise," he said. "I don't break my word, not even to frightened girls playing at being mobsters' wives." "I'm not playing at anything," I said, and felt a spark of anger cut through the fear. "I'm surviving." His eyebrow lifted, barely perceptible, but I caught it. Surviving. Interesting choice of words. What would you call it? Adapting. Enduring. Calculating the best possible outcome from impossible circumstances. He spun me, and I stumbled slightly. His arm tightened, catching me. "You're stronger than you look, Aria Castellano." "Aria Moretti," I corrected, and hated how the name felt in my mouth. "Not yet. Not really." He pulled me closer still, until I could feel the solid heat of his chest, the controlled strength in every movement. Names are earned in my world. So are loyalties. I didn't ask for your world. No, but you're in it now. His lips were near my ear, his breath warm against my skin. And there are rules you need to understand. First rule, trust no one. Not the servants, not the drivers, not the women who smile at you and call you friend. Everyone in this room would sell you to my enemies for the right price. My pulse kicked up. Comforting. It's realistic. Second rule, everything you see, everything you hear, you forget. You're deaf, blind, and mute to my business. Understand? You said this was just appearances. It is. But appearances in my life come with risks. The FBI photographs everyone who enters my home. Rival families look for weaknesses. You are, by definition, a weakness. The word stung more than it should have. Then why marry me at all? Because I needed someone with nothing to lose. Someone who wouldn't get ideas about love or permanence. Someone who'd take the money and disappear when the time came. His hand shifted, his thumb tracing a small circle at the base of my spine. Casual, unconscious. And yet it sent electricity racing up my vertebrae. You fit the profile perfectly. How romantic. Romance is a fairy tale for people who can't afford reality. The music swelled, and he dipped me. A move so smooth, so controlled, that several people applauded. When he brought me back up, his face was inches from mine. The honeymoon is in 3 days. We're expected in Positano for a week. My stomach dropped. Honeymoon? For appearances. Separate rooms, obviously. But photographs will circulate. Society pages will publish them. It's part of the arrangement. You didn't mention... There are many things I didn't mention. You'll learn them as necessary. The song ended. He released me immediately, stepping back as if I were contaminated. The loss of his warmth was jarring. "Smile," he commanded softly. "They're watching." I smiled. It felt like dying. He took my hand, raised it to his lips. A gesture so old world, so romantic, that a collective sigh seemed to ripple through the watching crowd. His mouth brushed my knuckles, warm and brief, and his eyes locked on mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Welcome to the family, Mrs. Moretti," he said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Then quieter, just for me, "Don't make me regret this arrangement." He walked away, and I stood there in my borrowed wedding dress, surrounded by strangers, legally bound to a man whose world operated by rules I couldn't begin to understand. The champagne in my abandoned glass had gone flat. The Plaza penthouse suite should have been romantic. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, a bedroom bigger than my childhood home, a bathroom with a tub carved from marble. Instead, it felt like a very expensive cage. Dante had disappeared immediately after the reception, citing business that couldn't wait. His driver had brought me here with my overnight bag and a single instruction: "Mr. Moretti will arrive later. Don't wait up." So I didn't. I'd peeled off the wedding dress, hung it carefully in the closet as if it mattered, and stood under a shower so hot it turned my skin pink. Tried to wash away the feeling of his hand on my back, his breath against my ear, the way his eyes had darkened when I'd challenged him. This is business. Keep it that way. His words. His rules. I wrapped myself in the hotel robe, Egyptian cotton monogrammed, and stood at the window, watching the city lights blur through unshed tears I refused to let fall. Somewhere out there, my parents were probably celebrating their freedom from debt. My mother had hugged me so tight before the ceremony, whispering thank yous I didn't want to hear. My father couldn't meet my eyes. I'd saved them. That had to be enough. The penthouse door opened at 2 a.m. I'd fallen asleep on the sofa, some mindless movie playing on the massive television. I jerked awake at the sound, pulse hammering, and found Dante standing in the foyer removing his cufflinks. He'd discarded his jacket. His white dress shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to his forearms, revealing surprisingly muscular forearms and a glimpse of a tattoo I hadn't known existed. Dark lines that looked like Latin script. He saw me and froze for a fraction of a second. "You're awake," he said. I fell asleep. I pulled the robe tighter, suddenly aware of how little I wore underneath, how intimate this felt despite the yards of space between us. He set the cufflinks on the entry table with precise care. "You should have taken the bedroom. You paid for the suite. It's our wedding night, optics. There's no one here to see. There's always someone watching." He moved to the bar, poured 2 fingers of whiskey. "Hotel staff talk. Photographers camp in lobbies. The suite next door is probably occupied by FBI agents with listening equipment." I blinked. "You're joking." "I never joke about surveillance." He downed the whiskey in one swallow, set the glass down. "Go to bed, Arya. You look exhausted. So do you." He glanced at me then, really looked at me, and something in his expression shifted. "This life, it takes more than you think it will. The constant vigilance, the weight of every decision, the knowledge that one mistake costs lives. Is that what I am? A decision? You're a necessity." He poured another whiskey, didn't drink it, just stared at the amber liquid like it held answers. My father built this family from nothing, clawed his way up from the streets of Napoli, made a name that meant something. He taught me that power isn't taken, it's earned, maintained, protected, and part of that protection is appearing stable, legitimate, the kind of man who has a wife, a home, a normal life. "There's nothing normal about this." "No," he agreed, "but it looks normal from the outside. That's all that matters." I stood, walked closer, driven by something I couldn't name. Curiosity, anger, the bizarre intimacy of a hotel room at 2 a.m. "What happened to you?" His jaw tightened. "Excuse me?" "To make you this. I gestured at him, at all of it. Cold, controlled, like you've forgotten how to be human. I didn't forget. His voice dropped, dangerous and soft. I chose, because humans are weak, and weakness gets you killed. He finally looked at me, and the intensity in his eyes pinned me in place. You want honesty? Fine. I've attended 12 funerals in the last 3 years. Good men. Loyal men. Men with families who depended on them. They died because they trusted the wrong person, loved the wrong woman, showed mercy at the wrong moment. So yes, I'm cold. Cold keeps people alive. The confession hung between us, raw and unexpected. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Don't be. Just be smart. He moved past me toward the bedroom, and I caught that scent again. Cedar and danger. The honeymoon isn't optional. We leave Tuesday morning. Private jet to Naples, then car to Positano. 7 days, separate rooms, but public affection will be expected. Can you handle that? Public affection. The phrase made my skin tingle. What kind of affection? He paused in the doorway, silhouetted against the bedroom's soft lighting. Hand-holding. Occasional kisses for photographs. Nothing that violates our arrangement. A pause. Unless you'd prefer to renegotiate terms? The question carried weight I couldn't decipher. No, I said quickly. The terms are fine. Good. He disappeared into the bedroom, leaving me alone with racing thoughts and the distinct impression that I'd just failed some test I hadn't known I was taking. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay on the sofa, watching the sky lighten over Central Park, wondering what I'd really agreed to when I'd said I do to a man who measured intimacy in contractual terms. Wondering why, despite everything, some traitorous part of me had noticed the way his hands moved when he'd poured that drink. The exhaustion carved into the lines around his eyes. The flash of something almost vulnerable when he'd talked about the men he'd lost. This is business, I reminded myself. Keep it that way. But business didn't usually make your heart race. Positano rose from the Amalfi Coast like a fever dream painted in pastels. Houses clung to cliffs in defiance of gravity, painted pink and yellow and cream, cascading down to water so blue it looked photoshopped. Bougainvillea spilled over terraces, and the air smelled like lemons and salt and summer. It was possibly the most romantic place on earth, which made it the perfect stage for our performance. Dante had barely spoken during the flight, 8 hours during which he'd worked on his laptop, made calls in rapid Italian, and treated me with the same cordial distance he'd show a business associate. The private jet had 2 bedrooms. We'd used them both. But now, standing on the terrace of the Via Mariposa, with the Mediterranean sprawling before us, his hand settled on my lower back with practiced ease. Smile, he murmured. The photographer is at 3 o'clock. I turned, and sure enough, a man with a telephoto lens lurked near the garden wall. Paparazzi, of course. How long has he been there? I asked through my smile. Since we arrived. They stake out this villa every summer. Several celebrities have stayed here. His thumb traced that small circle against my spine again, the gesture from our wedding dance. Come, let's give them something worth publishing. He led me to the infinity pool that seemed to spill directly into the sea. The water caught the afternoon light, turned it into liquid gold. And there, waiting with champagne on ice, was a table set for 2. This is excessive, I said. This is expected. He pulled out my chair, waited until I sat, then took his own seat close enough that our knees almost touched. In my world, a honeymoon in Positano means grand gestures, romance, luxury. The photos will circulate through every society magazine in New York and convince everyone our marriage is real. Exactly. He poured champagne, handed me a glass. His fingers brushed mine, deliberate or accidental, I couldn't tell. To appearances. To survival, I countered. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Respect? You're adapting faster than I expected. I told you I was strong. Strength is easy to claim. Proving it is harder. He raised his glass. The photographer's camera clicked rapidly. Drink. Look happy. Then we'll go inside and you won't see me for the rest of the day. I took a sip, let the bubbles dance on my tongue. Where will you be? Handling business, making calls, ensuring our temporary absence doesn't create opportunities for competitors. He set down his glass, leaned back, the picture of relaxation despite the tension in his shoulders. You're free to explore Positano, shop, swim, whatever you'd like. Just take Alessandro with you. Alessandro? Your bodyguard. I nearly choked on champagne. I don't need a bodyguard. You do now. You're a Moretti. That makes you a target. His voice hardened. Alessandro is former Italian Special Forces. He'll keep you safe. Don't argue. I wasn't planning to. You were. I can see it in your face. He leaned forward suddenly, reaching across the small table to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture looked tender, romantic. His voice remained pure business. Learn to school your expressions, Arya. Every emotion that crosses your face is information someone can use against you. His fingers lingered near my cheek. The photographer's camera went wild. Like this? I asked, forcing my features into pleasant neutrality. Better. But he didn't pull away. His hand shifted, cupping my jaw, thumb brushing my cheekbone. To anyone watching, it looked like a moment of intimate connection. To me, it felt like a lesson. When you're angry, relax your eyebrows. When you're afraid, keep your breathing even. When you're lying, maintain eye contact. What about when I'm attracted to someone? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Maybe the champagne, maybe the sun, maybe the sheer surreal absurdity of receiving tactical advice during our staged honeymoon. His thumb stilled, his eyes darkened. Are you attracted to someone? My pulse thundered. Hypothetically. Hypothetically. The word rolled off his tongue like smoke. Then hypothetically you'd hide it. Because attraction is weakness, and weakness is deadly. I know. You've explained. I should have pulled away. I didn't. But people do fall in love in your world, don't they? You said it yourself. Men die because they loved the wrong woman. They do, which is why I don't. His hand dropped from my face, the loss of contact almost physical. Love requires vulnerability I can't afford. Can't or won't. Same thing in my experience. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against tile. I need to make calls. Dinner is at 8. Wear something nice. We're going to La Sponda. Very public, very romantic. The photographers will have a field day. He walked away without looking back, leaving me alone with half-finished champagne and the uncomfortable realization that somewhere in the last 2 minutes, I'd stopped performing for the cameras. The photographer emerged from his hiding spot, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. I smiled back, raised my champagne glass in a mock toast, and wondered when exactly I'd become stupid enough to develop real feelings for a man who'd bought me like a corporate asset. La Sponda lived up to its reputation. 400 candles flickered throughout the Michelin-starred restaurant, turning the space into something from a dream. Our table overlooked the sea, now black and star-scattered under the night sky. And Dante, dressed in a navy suit that made his eyes look impossibly dark, played his part flawlessly. He'd ordered in Italian, smooth and confident, making the waiter smile with what sounded like jokes I couldn't understand. He'd poured my wine, complimented my dress, a simple black number I'd brought from home, suddenly feeling inadequate next to the designer-clad women dining nearby. You look beautiful, he'd said when I'd appeared in the villa's foyer. Nervous, but beautiful. Now, 3 courses in, he reached across the table and took my hand, Tell me something real, he said. I blinked. What? Something true about Aria Castellano, not Moretti, not the girl playing a role. Something that matters to you. The request caught me off guard. Why? Because we have an audience, and I'm bored of surface conversation. If we're going to perform intimacy, we might as well attempt actual connection. His thumb stroked across my knuckles, that same circular motion that was becoming dangerously familiar. Come on, something you care about. I took a breath, let myself be honest. Books. I care about books, old ones especially. First editions, leather bindings, that smell of aged paper and possibility. When I was a kid, the library was my escape. I'd spend hours just disappearing into other worlds. What kind of books? Everything. Classics, romance, mystery, but especially classics. Austen, the Brontes, Fitzgerald. I smiled, remembering. My father used to joke that I spent more time with dead writers than living people. Did you want to be a writer? I wanted to work in publishing, editor maybe, but college was expensive, and practical won out. Paralegal paid better. His expression shifted, not quite soft, but something close. Practical. I understand that impulse. What about you? I asked. Did you always want to be a criminal? He said it lightly, almost amused. No, I wanted to be a doctor. Cardiothoracic surgeon, specifically. I'd watch those medical shows, read textbooks, study anatomy. His smile turned bitter. Then my uncle was murdered in front of me when I was 15. I was holding his hand when he died, and I understood. Saving individual lives meant nothing if I couldn't protect my family, so I became this instead. The confession hung between us, heavy with implications. I'm sorry, I said, inadequate words for that kind of loss. Don't be. It taught me what mattered. He lifted my hand, pressed his lips to my palm. A gesture that looked romantic, but felt like something else. Something deeper. Loyalty. Protection. Power enough to keep the people you love safe. Do you? The words came out whispered. Love anyone? His eyes met mine, held. I love my mother. My sister and Florence. The men who'd take bullets for me. A pause. Love makes you vulnerable, but it also gives you purpose, something worth the risk. The waiter appeared with dessert, tiramisu, rich and dark. Dante released my hand to pour espresso, and the spell broke. But something had shifted. I felt it in the air between us, in the way his gaze lingered a fraction longer than necessary, in the careful distance he now maintained as if afraid of getting too close. We walked back to the villa along the beach path, waves whispering against rocks, stars impossibly bright overhead. Alessandro followed at a discreet distance, ever-present shadow. Thank you, Dante said suddenly, for playing along tonight, for... He paused, seeming to search for words. Being more than I expected. What did you expect? Resentment, hostility, someone going through the motions for the paycheck. He stopped walking, turned to face me, the moonlight carving his features into something almost tragic. You're not what I expected, Aria. Neither are you. Is that good or bad? I considered. Dangerous. He laughed, actual genuine laughter that transformed his whole face. Honest. I appreciate that. Then quieter. For what it's worth, if circumstances were different, don't. I stepped back, needing distance. Don't finish that sentence, because circumstances aren't different. This ends in a year. We both walk away, that's the deal. Right, the deal. Something in his voice sounded almost disappointed. Forgive me for momentarily forgetting. We walked the rest of the way in silence. At the villa, he bid me good night with perfect formality, disappeared to his wing, and left me alone with the realization that I'd just shut down whatever he'd been about to say. I told myself it was self-preservation. But lying in bed, listening to the sea and the distant sounds of Positano nightlife, I couldn't shake the feeling I'd just made a terrible mistake. Day 4 in Positano, and I was starting to understand why people wrote songs about this place. I'd spent the morning exploring the town with Alessandro shadowing me, a man of few words but impressive intimidation skills. We'd wandered through tiny shops selling hand-painted ceramics and limoncello, climbed the steps to Santa Maria Assunta with its Byzantine icon and Majolica-tiled dome, and I'd bought a leather journal I didn't need but couldn't resist. Dante had been absent. More business calls, more meetings conducted in Italian I couldn't follow. We'd maintained our performance for the photographers, who seemed to materialize whenever we appeared in public together. A kiss on the forehead here, his arm around my waist there. But behind closed doors, he'd retreated into professional courtesy. I told myself I was relieved. This was easier, cleaner. I was lying. That afternoon, I found him on the villa's lower terrace, the one that opened directly onto private beach. He'd discarded his shirt, wore only linen pants, and was doing pull-ups on a bar attached to the pergola. Muscles moved under tanned skin, and I caught sight of more tattoos, intricate work that covered his ribs and shoulder. I should have left. Instead, I stood there like an idiot, watching. He dropped from the bar, grabbed a towel, and turned, stopping short when he saw me. "Sorry," I said quickly. "I didn't mean to interrupt. You're not." He wiped sweat from his face, and I forced my eyes to remain on his face, not the defined abs and the V of muscle that disappeared into his waistband. "I thought you were shopping." "I came back early. It's hot." "Want to swim?" The question surprised me. "I didn't bring a suit. There's a boutique in town. I had Alessandro pick up a few things this morning." He gestured to the cabana. "Should be in there, various sizes." "You bought me swimsuits?" "I bought my wife appropriate attire for a beach honeymoon. Is that a problem?" His wife. The words did something complicated to my chest. "No," I managed. "No problem." 20 minutes later, I emerged in a black one-piece that fit perfectly and probably cost more than my monthly rent. Dante was already in the water, swimming laps with powerful strokes that ate up distance. I waded in, gasped at the temperature, warmer than I'd expected, and dove under. When I surfaced, he was there, close, droplets clinging to his eyelashes, hair slicked back, looking like some kind of Mediterranean god. "You swim well," he observed. "High school team, 4 years." I treaded water, hyper-aware of his proximity. "You?" "Navy. Brief stint before my father died, and I had to take over." He floated on his back, face to the sun. I missed it, the discipline, the clarity of purpose. "Do you miss anything about before?" I asked. "Before all this?" He was quiet for a long moment. Privacy, anonymity, the ability to walk into a room without calculating exit strategies and potential threats. He righted himself, eyes finding mine. Innocence, maybe, the version of me who thought the world was fair. It's not, though. No, it's brutal and random, and the only thing that matters is power enough to protect what's yours. He moved closer, and I could feel the current of his movement against my skin. "But you already know that, don't you? You wouldn't be here otherwise." "I'm here because my father's mistakes gave me no choice." "There's always a choice, Arya. You chose your family over yourself. That's nobility dressed up as necessity." His hand found my waist underwater, steadying, not aggressive, but the contact sent electricity through every nerve. "You're stronger than you think. Or more foolish. Maybe both." His other hand came up, brushing wet hair from my face. We were close now, treading water in sync, the villa's privacy walls ensuring no photographers, no witnesses. This would be easier if you were different, more mercenary, more cold. Easier for who? Me. His voice dropped. Because then I wouldn't feel like I was taking advantage of someone who deserves better than this arrangement. My heart hammered. Dante, I know. The deal. 1 year. Professional distance. But his hands remained on me, warm despite the water, and his eyes searched my face like he was trying to memorize something. Except I'm starting to think that was a mistake. What was? Pretending I could keep this purely transactional. That spending a week with you in the most romantic place on earth wouldn't affect me. That watching you smile at strangers, speak broken Italian to shopkeepers, light up when you talk about books. He stopped, jaw tight. I'm not good at this. Feelings, vulnerability, all of it. Then why? He kissed me. Not for cameras. Not for show. Just his mouth on mine, salt water and surprise and something that felt terrifyingly real. His hand cupped the back of my head, angling me closer, and I melted into it because my body apparently had no survival instinct whatsoever. It was slow, searching, the kind of kiss that asked questions instead of demanding answers. When he pulled back, we were both breathing hard. That wasn't part of the contract, I whispered. No. It wasn't. He didn't look apologetic. Tell me to stop, and I will. Tell me this crosses a line, and I'll never do it again. But don't ask me to pretend I don't want you because I'm tired of lying. The honesty devastated me. This is dangerous. Everything about me is dangerous. You knew that when you signed the papers. His thumb traced my lower lip. But if you want me to walk away, I will. If you want to maintain distance, we'll maintain it. Your choice. My choice. When had I last had one of those? I don't know what I want, I admitted. You scare me. This world scares me, but... His eyes were so dark, so intense. But I can't stop thinking about you. About this. About what happens when we're not performing. The confession came out rushed, nervous. And I know that's stupid. I know in a year I'm supposed to walk away with my money and start over, and developing feelings ruins everything, but... He kissed me again, cutting off my spiral. Deeper this time, more certain, his body pressing mine against the infinity pool's edge. Then let's be stupid together, he murmured against my mouth. For this week. For however long we have, let's stop pretending. What about the rules, the contract? We'll renegotiate. He pulled back enough to meet my eyes. New terms. For as long as this lasts, we're honest with each other. Real. And when it ends, if it ends, we do it with dignity. No resentment, no regrets. Can you promise that? No regrets. No, he said, painfully honest. Because I think you might become my biggest one. It should have scared me. Instead, it felt like permission. Then let's be reckless, I said, and kissed him first this time. We stayed in the water until the sun began to set, trading kisses and confessions, learning the map of each other's bodies through touch and exploration. And when we finally emerged, skin wrinkled and lips swollen, something fundamental had shifted. The honeymoon had stopped being performance. And that, I realized, was the most dangerous thing of all. The remaining days in Positano blurred into something dreamlike. We abandoned pretense. Dante canceled his business calls, dismissed the bodyguards to a discreet distance, and we simply existed together. We ate breakfast on the terrace, swam in the afternoons, explored hidden coves accessible only by boat. He taught me Italian phrases, not the tourist basics, but the words lovers used. Tesoro, amore mio, ti voglio. At night, we'd sit on the villa's rooftop, drinking wine and talking about everything. He told me about his sister Sophia, an artist in Florence, who painted what he called aggressive florals and refused to acknowledge her family's business, about his mother's obsession with appearances and her secret heartbreak over his father's infidelities, about the first man he'd killed, self-defense at 19, a moment that had changed everything. I told him about my mother's illness when I was 12, the medical bills that had first strained my father's business, about my college boyfriend, who'd left when I'd chosen to stay home and help instead of following him to Stanford, about the persistent loneliness of being invisible in a world that only noticed beautiful, rich, or powerful people. "You're not invisible," Dante had said, his fingers threaded through mine. "You're a wildfire pretending to be a candle. Anyone who doesn't see it is blind." We didn't sleep together, not fully. He held the line there with surprising discipline, saying he wanted our first time to be in New York, in his home, when we were certain. When it wouldn't feel like a honeymoon fantasy that might evaporate with the Mediterranean sun. I didn't push, partly because I appreciated the restraint, mostly because I was terrified that if we crossed that final threshold, I'd lose whatever remained of my ability to walk away. Our last night, we returned to La Sponda. But this time, there were no cameras, no performances, just us, sharing tiramisu and espresso, his hand warm around mine, his eyes soft in candlelight. "When we get back," he said carefully, "things will be different." My stomach dropped. Different how? New York is real life. My life. There are obligations, dangers, complications. He hesitated. "People will want to hurt me by hurting you. The FBI will try to use you to gather information. Rival families will test your loyalty. It's not romance, it's survival." "I know that. Do you?" He leaned forward, intense. "Because this, Positano, us, these perfect days, this isn't sustainable. The moment we land, I become the man you married at the plaza, cold, calculating, constantly vigilant. I can't afford vulnerability, not where people can see it." "So what are you saying?" My voice came out smaller than I'd intended. "This was just a vacation fling?" "No." The word came fast, fierce. "I'm saying I need you to understand what you're signing up for. If we do this, if we make this real, you need to be prepared for what that means. Separate bedrooms when my mother visits. Professional distance at family events. Me disappearing for days without explanation. Secrets I can't share. But behind closed doors?" His expression softened. "Behind closed doors, you're mine, completely, and I'm yours." He brought my hand to his lips. "If you want that." "Do you?" "More than I've wanted anything in a very long time." The admission seemed to cost him something. Which is exactly why this is dangerous. Wanting makes you careless. Caring creates blind spots. Love is a weakness, I finished. "You've said. It is. But maybe." He paused, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen him. "Maybe some weaknesses are worth having." The waiter appeared with the check, breaking the moment. Dante paid, stood, offered his hand. We walked back to the villa along the beach path one last time. Tomorrow we'd fly home. Tomorrow reality would intrude. But tonight, under impossible stars, we could pretend the world beyond this village didn't exist. At the villa door, he pulled me close. "Thank you," he whispered against my hair. "For this week, for seeing me, for making me remember what it feels like to be human." "Dante." He kissed me, soft and desperate, and achingly tender. Kissed me like he was memorizing the taste of me. And when he pulled away, his eyes held something that looked dangerously like love. "Whatever happens," he said, "don't regret this. Don't regret us. Promise me." "I promise," I whispered, even though I knew it was a lie. Because how could I not regret falling for a man I'd have to leave? How could I not regret discovering that the monster I'd married was actually the best man I'd ever known? We stood there in the doorway, holding each other, and I felt the future pressing down. Inevitable, approaching, already breaking my heart. Tomorrow, we'd return to New York. Tomorrow everything would change. But tonight, I let myself believe in fairy tales. New York welcomed us back with rain and reality. The penthouse Dante called home occupied the top 3 floors of a Tribeca building, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the Hudson. It was beautiful, masculine, expensive, and felt nothing like a home. "Your wing is east side," he said as his driver carried in our luggage. "Bedroom, office, bathroom. I'm west. Shared spaces are the kitchen, living areas, gym." He handed me a key card. "This accesses the private elevator. Don't lose it." The warmth from Positano had evaporated the moment we'd boarded the plane. Now, standing in this showcase apartment, he was the stranger from our wedding again. Controlled, distant, already checking his phone for messages. "Dante," I started. "I have a meeting in an hour. Make yourself comfortable. Maria, the housekeeper, comes Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. Don't let her clean your office if you keep anything private." He was already moving toward his wing, already gone. "We'll talk later." He disappeared behind a door that closed with expensive softness, leaving me alone. I found my wing, tastefully decorated, impersonal, a hotel room pretending to be a home. My clothes had already been unpacked, hung in a closet 3 times the size of my childhood bedroom. The bathroom had heated floors and a rain shower. The office held a desk, bookshelves, a window seat overlooking the city. It was perfect. I hated it. For 3 days, I barely saw him. He left before I woke, returned after I'd gone to bed. We passed each other like ghosts. A nod here, a murmured greeting there. Once, I found a note on the kitchen counter. "Dinner with family tonight. Wear something appropriate. Car picks you up at 7. The dinner was at his mother's penthouse on the Upper East Side. Old money, old world, older judgments. Dante's mother, Francesca, presided over the table like a queen holding court. His uncle Lorenzo assessed me with eyes that missed nothing, and Dante, in a charcoal suit and ice-cold demeanor, played his part flawlessly. "Aria, dear," Francesca said over the second course, "you must redecorate Dante's place. It's far too masculine. A wife's touch is needed." "I wouldn't presume," I said carefully. "It's his home." "It's both your home now." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Or are you one of those modern wives who maintains separate residences?" Dante's hand found mine under the table. Warning or comfort, I couldn't tell. "We're still adjusting," he said smoothly. "The wedding was quick. We're finding our rhythm." Indeed. Lorenzo leaned back, wine glass dangling from practiced fingers. Quite quick. One might wonder about the urgency. The implication hung there, crude, deliberate. "Uncle," Dante's voice could have cut glass. "Careful. I'm simply saying a longer courtship might have been..." "She's pregnant." The lie came from my mouth before I'd thought it through. "That's why we married quickly. We wanted to be settled before the baby comes." The table went silent. Dante's hand tightened on mine. Surprise or fury, I couldn't tell. His mother's face cycled through shock, calculation, and forced joy in rapid succession. "A baby!" Francesca's voice pitched higher. "Dante, why didn't you tell me? How far along? When is it due? Oh, we must plan a nursery, a baby shower." "It's early," Dante cut in, his tone warning everyone to drop it. "Very early. We weren't planning to announce it yet. But this is wonderful. A grandchild." Francesca was already on her feet, coming around to embrace me with surprising strength. "You've given me such a gift, Cara." I caught Dante's eyes over his mother's shoulder. His expression was unreadable, but a muscle ticked in his jaw. I'd just complicated everything. The drive home was silent. In the penthouse, he finally spoke. Pregnant. The word came out flat. You told my mother you're pregnant. I panicked. He was implying. I know what he was implying. I would have handled it. He paced, energy coiled and dangerous. Do you understand what you've done? In 3 months, 4 at most, she'll expect to see signs. In 9 months, a baby. What then, Arya? I'll fake a miscarriage. It happens all the time. Not in my family, not without consequences. He turned on me. My mother has been waiting for grandchildren for a decade. You just gave her hope. When you take it away, I'll be the villain. I know. I stood my ground. But right now, I'm the pregnant wife, which means I have value, protection. Time to figure out what? What we're doing. The words burst out. Because this, I gestured between us, isn't working. In Positano, you said we'd be real. But here, you barely look at me. We're strangers again. And I can't do this if you're going to shut me out completely. I'm protecting you. From what? From me. The admission seemed to tear out of him. From the life I lead. The things I do. The man I have to be. He stopped pacing, faced me fully. In Positano, I could pretend. But here, I can't. Here, I'm the man who orders executions over dinner, who launders money through legitimate businesses, who broke 3 of a man's fingers last week for stealing from me. That's who I am, Arya. Not the version who kissed you on the beach. I know who you are. You know pieces. Fragments. He moved closer, and I saw the exhaustion, the weight he carried. The full truth would horrify you. Try me. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then quietly. The money your father owed. He didn't just gamble it away. He borrowed from me to cover business losses, then borrowed more to pay back the first loan. Classic debt spiral. But the reason I agreed to the marriage arrangement instead of just taking his company. He paused. I'd seen you, at your father's office, dropping off lunch. You didn't notice me, but I noticed you. My breath caught. What? 6 months before our wedding, you walked past me in that lobby. You were reading a book, Pride and Prejudice, battered paperback, and you ran straight into a column because you weren't watching where you were going. A ghost of a smile. You apologized to the column. Then you blushed and hurried away. And I thought, that's someone real, someone who still exists outside the corruption. So this was never just about optics. It started that way. I did need a wife for appearance sake. The old guard was pushing for it, and your father's debt provided leverage. He ran a hand through his hair. But I chose you specifically because I wanted you, even knowing it was selfish, even knowing I'd ruin you. The confession settled between us, heavy and complicated. You haven't ruined me, I said softly. Not yet, but I will. Because I'm not strong enough to stay away, and being close to me destroys everything good. He reached out, cupped my face. You should hate me. You should take the money and run the moment the year is up. What if I don't want to? Then you're more foolish than I thought. But his thumb stroked my cheek with heartbreaking tenderness. The pregnancy lie buys us time, but it also raises stakes. My mother will be watching, celebrating, planning. When it ends, we'll handle it. Together. Together. He tested the word like it was foreign. I'm not good at together, Arya. Learn. I stood on my toes, kissed him softly. Because I'm not going anywhere. He pulled me close, buried his face in my hair. You're going to break my heart. Only if you break mine first. We stood there, holding each other in the middle of his sterile penthouse, and I felt the shift. The moment pretense dissolved completely, replaced by something infinitely more dangerous. We were all in now, Whatever came next, we'd face it together. Even if it destroyed us both. The next 3 weeks fell into a pattern. Dante still worked impossible hours, still disappeared into meetings I wasn't privy to. But now, he came home. Now, he'd find me curled up with a book in the living room and join me, pulling my feet into his lap, reading his own work while his thumb traced absent patterns on my ankle. We'd have dinner together when his schedule allowed, sometimes takeout at midnight, sometimes meals he cooked with surprising skill, his grandmother's recipes executed with the same precision he applied to everything. "You cook," I'd said the first time, watching him prepare carbonara. My nonna insisted, said any man who couldn't feed himself was useless. He'd smiled, adding pasta to boiling water with perfect timing. She was terrifying and wonderful. Was. Died when I was 16. Cancer. He'd focused on the sauce, but I'd seen the grief. She was the only one who treated me like a grandson instead of an heir. I miss her every day. We learned each other's rhythms. He needed silence in the mornings, 3 espressos before conversation. I was useless before coffee, but came alive at night. He slept on his back, absolutely still, like death practicing. I sprawled everywhere, stealing covers, talking in my sleep. We still hadn't crossed that final line. We'd kiss until we were both desperate, touch until my skin felt electric, but he'd always pull back. "Not yet," he'd say, breathing hard. "When I have you completely, I want time. Hours. No interruptions, no business calls. You deserve better than being rushed." It was simultaneously frustrating and devastatingly romantic, but cracks were forming. Alessandro, my bodyguard, started appearing without explanation. "Mr. Moretti's orders," was all he'd say. Dante became increasingly tense, checking his phone obsessively, taking calls in Italian that made his voice go cold and hard. "What's wrong?" I finally asked one night, finding him on the terrace at 2 a.m., smoking, a habit he'd claimed he'd quit years ago. Rival family making moves, testing boundaries. He took a drag, exhaled smoke into the night. "They know about you now, the pregnant wife. They're calculating how to use that." Fear spiked through me. Use it how? Kidnapping, blackmail, anything that provides leverage over me. He stubbed out the cigarette. "I'm handling it. Don't worry." "Don't worry? You just told me I'm a target. You've been a target since you married me. This just makes it official." He turned, pulled me close. "I won't let anything happen to you. You have my word. Your word. Like the contract? Better than the contract." His lips brushed my forehead. "Because this time, I actually care what happens to you." 2 days later, everything fell apart. I was in the penthouse office, working on a legal brief I'd been neglecting since the wedding, when the door burst open. Dante stood there, and I'd never seen him like this. Shirt untucked, tie loose, hair disheveled, and his knuckles were bleeding. "We need to talk," he said. My heart stopped. What happened? "Get dressed. Something nice. We're going out." "Dante, you're bleeding." "It's not my blood." He said it so casually, so matter-of-factly that the horror took a moment to register. "Please, Arya, get dressed. We have 1 hour." I changed on autopilot, black dress, heels, the pearl necklace he'd bought me in Positano. When I emerged, he'd cleaned up, changed into a fresh suit, looking every inch the sophisticated businessman, except for the barely controlled violence in his eyes. The car took us to Cipriani, the most public restaurant in New York. Celebrities, politicians, society elite. Everyone was there. And Dante chose the most visible table, ordered champagne, took my hand across the white tablecloth. "What's happening?" I whispered. "We're being seen. Together. Happy. Publicly." His grip tightened. "Because right now, the FBI is raiding 3 of my businesses, And I need the alibi of being here with my pregnant wife, celebrating our future. The world tilted. The FBI. Smile. His voice was steel wrapped in silk. They're watching. Everyone's watching. If you love me at all, smile and look happy. So I did. I smiled and laughed and let him feed me bites of dessert. I played the part of the adoring wife, while my mind raced with implications and fear. When we finally left, photographers swarmed. Dante pulled me close, kissed me for the cameras, and whispered against my lips, "I'm sorry for all of this, for dragging you into my war." In the car, I finally broke. "Tell me the truth, all of it." He did. The rival family, the Calabresi, had been encroaching on his territory for months. Small moves, testing responses. Dante had pushed back, hard, making examples. Last week, a Calabresi captain had disappeared. Tonight, the FBI had moved on information they'd received from someone inside Dante's organization. "There's a rat," he said flatly. "Someone close to me is feeding information to both the FBI and the Calabresi. And until I find them, everyone is suspect. Even..." He stopped. "Even me?" I finished, cold settling in my stomach. His silence was answer enough. "You think I'm the informant. No, but others do. You're the newest addition to my life. The convenient scapegoat." His jaw clenched. "I know you're not involved, but I need to prove it." "Which means..." "What?" He looked at me and I saw real fear. "We need to sell the pregnancy, make it undeniable. Because pregnant wives don't betray their husbands. And if I can prove you're carrying my child, you're protected from suspicion." "But I'm not actually pregnant." "I know, so we'll need to fake evidence. Doctor's appointments, ultrasound photos, the works." He took a breath. "Or we could make it real." The words hung between us like a grenade. "You're suggesting I'm suggesting that if we're going to be bound anyway, if we're already in too deep to escape, then maybe we stop pretending this is temporary." His hand found mine, desperate. "I love you. I've loved you since Positano, maybe before. And if there's a chance, any chance, that we could have something real, something that lasts beyond contracts and deals, I want it. By getting me pregnant, that's not love, Dante. That's survival, protection, the only way I can keep you safe." His voice broke slightly. "They'll come for you, Aria. The Calabresi, the FBI, whoever the rat is. But they won't touch a pregnant woman. It's one of the few lines even my world doesn't cross." I pulled my hand away, needing space to think. "You're asking me to have a baby, to tie myself to you permanently, to choose me, choose us, choose this life." He looked shattered. "I know it's insane. I know I have no right to ask. But I'm asking anyway because the alternative is losing you, and I can't do that." The car pulled up to the penthouse. Inside, Alessandro waited with 2 other men I didn't recognize. More security, more guards, more evidence that the walls were closing in. Dante walked me to my wing, stopped at the door. "Think about it," he said quietly. "But decide soon. Because tomorrow I'm meeting with my advisors, and they're going to demand I cut loose any potential security risks. I can protect you if you're pregnant. If you're not, you'd abandon me?" The betrayal cut deep. No, never. But I might not be able to stop them from forcing the issue. He cupped my face, and I saw his heart breaking in real time. "I'm trying to save you the only way I know how, even if you hate me for it." He left me there, and I sank against the closed door, mind spinning. Outside, New York glittered. Beautiful, dangerous, indifferent to the lives played out in its shadows. I had a choice to make. Stay and become real, with all the danger and permanence that implied. Or take the exit while I still could, before I lost myself completely in a world that ate people alive. The decision should have been simple. It wasn't.